asked me to be here, and my first instinct was no, not to do it. But at the end of the day, I feel I owe it to Marla. I needed to be there for her and do this for her. It's been 10 years, and then you start remembering.
What I'm gonna tell you, okay? It's gonna be a little disturbing to you. Alright?
He asked me if I knew of any reason why Larry would do this. And I had no idea. I'd never even thought of him to be capable of this.
I haven't told our story to anyone. It's time. It's time to tell our story. It's not my story. It's our story.
We believe that this is going to be a homicide. I'm sorry.
I wanted to scream. I wanted to hit him. I wanted it to just not be true.
What happened, Larry?
I don't know.
If I would have known what he truly would have been capable of, there's no way I would have stayed. I married him and he took my world away.
I have 3 siblings, Larry being the second oldest. That's him. He was 6 or 7 here. Those eyes seem kind of creepy. And it's how he squints and they all just look black. Just the way his face has that, like a crooked smile. It gives me chills. I see the monster in him now. Back then, he was just a kid. I never saw anything wrong with growing up. I would say he overreacted a lot, yes. If the spotlight was not on him, he wasn't happy. One day my mom and I went on a mother-daughter trip. We went out to the mall, went to the movie, went to lunch. When we got home, Larry's room was trashed. It was a disaster. He was angry.
Larry, what's the problem?
The attention wasn't on him. He needed to feel that he was the only one. My mom, she would yell. She'd be like, you need to clean this up.
You'd better get this cleaned up now. I'm not doing anything!
And Larry he just flipped. He was screaming at her.
Shut up! You can't tell me what to do! Larry, you can't talk to me like that.
She's nothing but a bitch, and just going off on her, like really belittling her.
If it's a problem, you clean it up. I hate you! Larry!
My mom was shocked. Like, who do you think you are?
When I get back in here in 30 minutes, this had better be cleaned up.
My parents tried to punish him, but they learned very quickly that punishments meant nothing to him. Larry ran away. My parents, they were both in a panic.
Anything?
No.
It's okay. I'm sure he's okay.
We called the police, filed a report, do everything they needed to do. And that's when the phone rang.
Excuse me.
My dad picked it up and he was like, "Where are you? Come home." You can hear his voice was shaking.
Are you okay? Where are you? I'll come and get you.
It was Larry. He was like, "I'm fine, I'm okay," and he hung up.
Larry!
And this was pre-caller ID and Star 69 and all that, so we had no idea, how to find the number, how to find where he's at. It literally was a waiting game. He needed to know he was in control still, even though he wasn't there. But he took it way too far. It had been a little over 24 hours. When he came in, he had a smirk on his face.
Larry, where have you been?
Nowhere special.
It was a game in his mind. He thought it was hilarious. He had no respect for anyone or anything. He did not care whatsoever.
Your mother and I were terrified.
Why?
Where are you going?
Larry was very manipulative. Anything to get the attention. And then when the running away, it didn't work, things got more serious. My relationship with Larry, I had always thought was typical sibling rivalry. We'd have our fights, roughhouse and whatnot. But with Larry, he would throw fists. One day, I don't recall what started it, but Larry had hit me. The punch hurt. I was angry. I hit him. When he was mad, his eyes would glaze over. He would just have this look in his eyes. And you knew something was gonna happen. He caught me, he hit me. I just curled up in a ball. He kicked me in the ribs with his boots. I couldn't move. I could not get up. I felt like a punching bag. There's nothing I can do to stop it. My parents were not home that day. I laid there until he had finished. When I could get up, I got to my room, I closed the door. I waited until my mom was in the house before I left my room. I thought my parents will know what to do. Beforehand, we never would have suspected it.
If what's on your fingers and your hands is their blood, I understand.
But now after seeing everything that's happened, like all you see is a monster. As we got older, you started to recognize, like, something's not right.
Mom? Hi, Eddie.
There was an instance where Larry actually raised a fist to my mom. I went into my mom's room later on that night, and she was like, there was something wrong.
You okay?
I don't know how to handle it.
He would never apologize. He never showed any remorse. He got attention from it, and he liked it. It didn't matter whether it was positive or negative attention. Attention's attention.
No matter what I say, doesn't seem to make a difference.
I remember she told me that she was scared to death, and she didn't know what to do. We just cried. My parents were trying to figure out what he needed. With 4 kids and only one of them's going off the deep end, they had no idea what to do. Going through high school, he was angry, but he didn't do the destroying the house, the yelling, the screaming. He had had an interest in witchcraft, but it grew stronger at this point. It was way more than Harry Potter. He would go down into the basement with his candles, and that was his area. The only time I ever went down into the basement was to do my laundry, and it wasn't very often. It scared the crap out of me down there. I just seen him sitting with his books, and his head's down like he's reading, quietly plotting revenge.
That's good. Air, spirit, water, earth, fire.
He would go on about mutilating somebody,
Summoning a vocation.
sacrifices. He would always say he could get away with murder and no one would ever know.
My brother, my sister, that'll teach all. A demon right with a conjuring gin.
He had a spell. He could do whatever he wanted. I never believed in it. In my mind, it's nonsense. This is stupid. But he believed it.
That would work.
Larry got accepted into culinary school. It was probably a little over an hour drive to his dorm. I'm not gonna lie, I did enjoy that he wasn't there. I was able to relax. But there was one night in particular, it was about 2 weeks into school, he cut himself. We met him at the hospital. He had carved like an upside down cross, like the Antichrist symbol, random stuff that he had carved in his arm.
I'll be right back, okay? Sit tight.
He wanted the attention, and he was gonna do what it took to get it.
How is he? He'll need to stay for a psych evaluation. We don't want him injuring himself any further.
But that's when they put him in the institution, the behavior ward. At the group home, Larry met another resident, and she became pregnant. I don't know what happened to her.
That's where that goes.
But they took the baby into foster care, and Larry had visits.
So good at that.
That is how he met Marla. It was Marla that changed him.
I was working as a personal care aide, and I worked in a foster home. I was in the process of divorcing. It was great having Larry in the house when he moved in. He was very caring to the children. Triton was 11, and Kendra was 8, and Alicia would have been 6. And I was raising them on my own when I met Larry. To see him reading stories with them, it melted my heart. My kids were finally happy. It was almost like being in an interrogation room.
Oh, God, come on, Larry.
No. This is not okay. I am not all right with this.
He was a different Larry. That scared me.
He was doing good. He was working to get, his baby back, and Marla was helping him. And Marla was amazing. I truly believed he had changed, that he was a different person.
Hey. Kat moved in. She wanted a change of pace. And so Larry had offered for her to come stay with us. And she had agreed.
Thank you guys so much for letting me stay with you.
Yeah. This is gonna be good.
I believe everybody deserves forgiveness and a chance. I was like, I'll give him a chance. He had a different personality. I no longer feared him. I could sit down on the porch and have a drink with him. He's working, earning money, like supporting a family. He was a different person.
Yeah, that's amazing news. Thank you so much. Bye.
Who was it?
The first time he told me about casting spells was the day we got the call that Junior was going to come live with us.
They say I can get Junior back.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Larry, I'm so happy for you.
I know. It's amazing.
And he had said that he had cast a spell the night before.
I can't believe the spell worked.
What do you mean?
Oh, last night I did a spell that Junior would come home, and now it's happened.
And I'd never seen him cast a spell.
You never mentioned doing spells to me before.
I've been doing it since I was a kid.
He's like, no, seriously. He's like, I cast a spell, and this is what I had hoped for. He had this almost like amazement that the spell worked.
You know it's working when everything goes right.
Yeah. Listen, I don't want to tell you what to believe in, but
I told him, you believe what you want to believe, I'll believe what I want to believe. But the rules that I had for him was that he was not to practice in the house and that he was not to involve my children in any of it.
I just don't want you doing it at home, okay?
Yeah, sure.
No, like, really, I don't want it around the girls.
We don't do those things. And he agreed. He agreed that he would not do them with the children there, and he would not do them in the house.
You know what? Totally fine, Marla. Okay? Because everything is fine. Because Junior's coming home. I'm gonna go clean his room.
Larry's religious beliefs was more, to me, of a hobby. I didn't think anything of it. After the rehearsal dinner, must have been in the middle of the night, that I had gotten the feeling something almost gnawed at me. And it was like, you shouldn't do this. You should cancel it. If you go through with this, something bad's going to happen. You will regret it for the rest of your life. But I tossed and turned, then I woke up, and almost like that feeling had gone away. He was pretty much everything that I wanted for my kids. I loved him. So then I just went on with my day. I went on and got married. It was a happy day. When my focus wasn't purely on him, he was a different Larry. It was the jealous Larry. One day, I was just getting home from work, and I was probably 15 minutes later than what I normally am.
You're late. Why?
Oh, I needed to drop a friend off. He needed a ride.
It was him, wasn't it?
Larry thought I was cheating on him.
Come on, Larry.
It was almost like being in an interrogation room.
No. This is not okay. I am not all right with this.
What were you doing? Who are you with? Why were you taking so long?
You are supposed to be my wife. Start acting like it.
I am.
You have to stop hanging out with the guys at work. Do you understand?
So like we're just friends, strictly platonic.
You are not going to do that anymore.
To Larry, it was a competition. My attention needed to be on him, and only him. It was probably a good 45 minutes to an hour. Nothing I said appeased him. It just continually went on and went on until I finally just said, if you don't want me to be friends with him, then fine.
I mean it. Never again.
If it's that big of a deal to you, I won't talk to him anymore.
I love you. I want to be with you. And that's that.
Okay?
And then it was done. Kendra and Alicia's rooms were always a mess.
Look, I told you it's trashed.
I know. I'll talk to them.
Every time I leave, they make a mess.
Look, they're kids. This happens all the time, all right?
And he thought that all the rooms had to be completely clean and spick and span. And I was like, it's not your responsibility.
I'm tired of having to pick up after them.
Larry, nobody asked you to do anything, okay?
I was like, what part of that do you not get? I'm not asking you to do everything. And he just kind of shoved me. For him to shove me like that, that scared me. And that's when he said, I can hurt you in the worst possible way and not touch you.
I don't need to lay a hand on you to hurt you, Marla. Don't ever forget that.
I didn't know what he meant. When he looked at me and I seen that blank stare, it was almost scary that somebody could be looking at you but not be the person that you're looking at. It wasn't the Larry I married. The Larry I married never laid his hands on me.
Okay, then clean this place up!
That made me wonder what he could be capable of. But I didn't want to end our marriage. I loved Larry. I didn't want to put my kids through another divorce. I told him that we had to go in for couples counseling. I would fight at all costs to keep what we had. Nothing was out of the ordinary. I totally missed that sign. How could I miss that sign?
I wish now I turned around. But at that point, I didn't.
Larry's jealousy started off with the different guys that were in my life, but then it became more. It was the children. He thought that the kids got more of my time than he did.
Got it? There you go.
Hey, where you going?
To the movies?
On my weekends off, I would take the kids and go do things with them.
What? When are we gonna have dinner then?
And he'd be like, why do you get to spend this much time with the kids? You don't get to spend that much time with me.
I have not seen you all week because you've been working. Why are these two so needy?
Larry.
What?
It made him feel powerful when he was mean to the kids. Intimidation made him feel good. It angered me when he would show them that intimidation. Because that's not what a parent does.
They should be able to go play and give us at least a little bit of time alone together, don't you think?
Okay, you need to calm down. All right?
I was just like, okay, calm down.
I promise you, I will find time for us. Okay?
And so he just stormed out of the house. I couldn't stop his jealous rages. When Kendra got her menstrual cycle, she was 9. I had already had the talk with her, but he just freaked out. Now she's not going to be pure anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's not going to be pure anymore.
She's not innocent anymore. She's not clean.
What are you talking about?
He was like, pure. She's not pure anymore. It didn't click to me then.
Look, you don't even have to be involved, okay? I'll handle it.
I'm not okay with this.
I thought he didn't want to have to buy the feminine products. It didn't cross my mind that her having her period had anything to do with his religious beliefs. I totally missed that sign. How could I miss that sign? On the morning of January 6th, Kat was sleeping in her room. Triton had stayed at my sister's the night before. Larry got up with me and he went and started my car because it was a really cold day. And he had already made my lunch for me. He gave me a kiss goodbye and told me that he loved me. And I went to work. I didn't get to say goodbye to Kendra Layshore Jr. that morning because they were sleeping and I didn't want to wake them up to give them a kiss goodbye. It was a typical day. Nothing was out of the ordinary.
So when I woke up, it was around noon. And I took my shower, got ready for work. Junior was laying down on the couch with Larry. They were getting ready to take a nap. Alicia was in her bedroom. And Kendra was on the computer playing her game.
Don't stay on that thing all day. Please go outside.
I will.
So I gave her a hug, said goodbye, and I left them. And I walked out the door. I had left my debit card at the house. And about halfway through my walk, I was arguing with myself in my mind, like, go get it. No, you don't need it. Just back and forth. I kept walking, I didn't go back. I wish now I turned around. But at that point, I didn't.
I was called at work and said that my house was on fire. And the officer said, I can't give you any information. You need to go to the hospital. We get to the emergency room, and one of the nurses took me over to where this police officer's at and just see his face. And I'm like, this is not good.
My name is Marla Harris. I'm looking for my daughters, Kendra and Alicia.
Ma'am, you need to wait.
He's like, you need to call somebody to come sit with you. He's like, I have the chaplain on the way up. I'm like, I don't want to talk to the chaplain. I want to see my girls. He's like, I can't allow you to do that. I want you to answer my questions. Are they dead? He's like, I can't tell you that. I'm like, how would you feel if it was your kids? You would want to know the answer. Like, that's all I'm asking. Please just tell me. They're dead, aren't they? And he said yes.
Claire wants to go to church again. See this stuff? Yeah. The crevices of your fingernails? Mm-hmm. You know what that is? That's blood. Yes, I know.
They didn't tell me why I had to go to the police station. They just said that they had some questions for me. And so I'm like, okay. And then the male detective comes in and he's like, is there anybody that we can call to have you come sit here with you while you answer questions? So then I call my mom, and I'm still just thinking that it's the girls have died from smoke inhalation.
There were some things that weren't adding up. Smoke was pretty thick with the firemen, but their impression in finding your daughters is that this was not the cause of their passing. Okay? We believe that this is going to be a homicide. And I'm sorry to tell you.
And then they started asking me questions about Larry and if I thought that he could do it, if he could be the one to kill the girls. And right away I was like, no.
He's never turned to heel, ever.
I kept telling him, like, he's such a good dad. He would not do this. This is not him. And that's when they proceeded to tell me that Kendra was completely naked when they found her. And that Alicia had been naked as well. And they brought in a couple of pictures of the girls. They both had something wrapped around their necks.
Do you recognize that belt? Yeah, that's his belt. Whose belt? Larry's. That's Larry's belt?
And I knew the belt because I just bought the pants for Larry not that long ago that had that belt on it. Larry had taken Kendra and had slit her wrist here, all the way down to the bone, before he strangled her. And he had sexually assaulted her. And with Alicia, he had punctured her jugular and strangled her. And then he had sexually assaulted her. Then it really hit home as to why Larry was so upset about Kendra not being quote unquote pure. It just all came to me that day.
Killed them.
I was like, why? Why did he do this? I want to see him. I want answers. Before I was even allowed to see Larry, they told me that I had to keep my hands behind my back, that I was not allowed to touch him in any way, shape, or form. Otherwise, I would be arrested on the spot. And I'm like, I looked at the officer and I'm like, you just told me he murdered my daughters. And you want me to keep my hands off of him?
What happened, Larry?
I don't know.
What do you think you don't know?
I don't know.
Well, what started the fire?
I don't know.
And I was just like, why? Why did you do this? Why did you rip our family apart? And he's like, I didn't do it.
Did you sacrifice the girl?
No, I didn't. I wouldn't sacrifice my own kid, son. I wouldn't sacrifice my own kid.
You can't even look at me. You can't even look at me.
I'm afraid of you right now. I'm afraid of you right now. How do you think I feel?
I was like, let me see your hands. Because the officer had already told me that he had blood in his cuticles and on his hands.
They want to know, and I'm doing my best to tell them what I know. Unfortunately,
You have like little cuts all over your hands.
It was too deep in his cuticles to wash away. They were able to get DNA samples from it and know exactly whose it was. It was Alicia's. This is Alicia. Her 3rd grade school picture. Their I love yous, their laughter. It's just this that. This is a picture of Larry now. Makes me sick to look at him. That blank stare. And he pretty much admitted to me that he did it. He said, I cast a spell, so I'm responsible.
how can we explain this to your wife? However you want to. I'm asking. What's the best way to do it? Tell her I was doing a spell and I f***ed up.
But he never once said, I'm sorry. He never once said I didn't mean to. He knew exactly what he was doing. He had told me that he could hurt me in the worst possible way and not even lay his hands on me. So I know he knew what he was doing. I kept walking, I didn't go back. Why didn't I go home? If I could go back, I'd protect those kids. I never would have left them. They were my life. I lost my world for not listening to my gut instinct. Because they were right. I regret marrying him, and I will for the rest of my life. But I still don't get what I did so wrong that he'd want to hurt me so bad. It's become a question that I will have probably no answer to the rest of my life. She didn't do anything. She was an amazing mom, an amazing wife, amazing sister. She didn't do anything to deserve it.
The desert never forgets. It buries, it hides. It swallows evidence whole, but it never truly lets go. And on a cold night in November 2001, just outside a nowhere town tucked between cracked highway lines and empty gas stations, something happened that ripped a hole straight through the silence of Nevada's high desert. A disappearance with no witnesses, no suspects, no reason, just an abandoned car. A set of footprints that ended abruptly in dust and a question that burned through the years like engine oil on flame. How does a person vanish in a place where there's nowhere to go? The story begins with headlights flickering on a desolate stretch of Route 93, a place locals avoid after dusk. The kind of place where the air tastes like metal and the wind drags strange whispers across the sand. A ranger on patrol spots a sedan pulled over near mile marker 47. Door open, hazard lights blinking like a dying signal. Inside a purse, a jacket and a phone, with an unfinished message still glowing on the cracked screen. Outside silence. No struggle, no blood, no tracks, except for a few steps pressed into powdery soil walking toward the darkness. Then stopping, as if swallowed by the night itself. The missing woman is Emily Carter, 29, a school nurse from Ely driving home after visiting friends in Las Vegas. A safe route. A familiar route, a route she'd taken dozens of times. Yet on that night, something made her pull over. Investigators replay her last known movements again and again. Security footage from a gas station showing her filling up her tank, buying a bottle of water, smiling politely at the cashier, then driving off into the vast black stretch of nothingness. A normal evening, a normal woman, a normal drive, and then a void. Emily's disappearance triggers a surge of panic in the community. Search teams comb the desert. Helicopters sweep the ridges with floodlights. Volunteers drag sticks through brush hoping for clues. But the desert gives nothing back. No body, no torn fabric, no tire tracks beyond her own. It is a cold case before the dust even settles. Her family insists she wasn't the type to run. Friends swear she had no enemies. Police insist foul play is likely, but the evidence, the precious, irreplaceable thread that should lead somewhere, has been erased clean, as if someone had time precision and a plan. Or as if the desert itself had decided to claim her. Rumors begin surfacing. Whispers that Emily had reported a strange car following her days earlier. Claims from travelers who swear they saw a lone figure walking along the highway that night, illuminated briefly by passing headlights. Stories of a trucker who picked up a woman matching her description, but the trucker himself disappears a year later, fueling a spiral of conspiracy theories that twist through the town like barbed wire. For investigators, the turning point, or what should have been one, comes from a single footprint found near the scene, deeper and larger than Emily's own, a man's footprint. But the tread pattern doesn't match any boots found in nearby stores. No suspects own anything similar. It becomes just another question swallowed by the ever-growing pile of unanswered ones. And over the years, the case decays into a weathered file box collecting dust in an evidence room. But the desert still remembers. Years pass. Emily's family moves away. The ranger who found the car retires. The search teams disband. The town stops talking about her. The cold case grows colder, freezing itself into the kind of tragedy people refer to only in lowered voices, with shaken heads and unfinished sentences. A ghost story told to warn travelers to stay alert on long, empty roads. Then, in 2021, 2 decades later, a wildfire scorches the region. Flames race through dried brush, exposing parts of the desert no human has walked across in years. And in the middle of the burned-out wasteland, a firefighter stumbles upon something half buried in soot and ash, a rusted metallic object glinting beneath charred stones. A fragment. A small curved piece of metal with faded paint, cracked edges, and a faint serial number. It looks insignificant. It looks like trash. But to someone who knows how to read the desert, it is a sign, a whisper, a reminder. This fragment doesn't match anything from Emily's car. And when examined under magnification, investigators identify traces of red glass from a broken taillight, but not from her sedan, from a second vehicle that must have been there the night she vanished, a vehicle that had never been reported, never recorded, never acknowledged. The discovery reignites the case like gasoline hitting fire. Detectives comb old logs, cross-reference traffic cameras from 2001, track down auto part suppliers who handled that specific taillight model. The search is meticulous, obsessive, and fueled by the haunting possibility that the truth has been sitting just out of reach for 20 years. And slowly, piece by piece, the outline of a hidden narrative begins to surface, one that contradicts the original theory entirely. The taillight belongs to an older model pickup, a make commonly used by one group at the time, desert miners hauling equipment to remote drill sites. And among them, one name stands out. A man with a record. A man with a history of violence. A man who worked in the exact region Emily disappeared. A man who abruptly moved out of state months after the incident. A man no one had paid attention to in 2001 because his truck had never been accounted for, never seen, never suspected. Until now. Detectives track him down in Arizona, living alone in an aging mobile home on the outskirts of Flagstaff. They interview neighbors. They search local archives. They dig through his employment records. And in a forgotten storage unit rented under his name 20 years earlier, they find something chilling. A box of spare parts including a taillight assembly, missing one small fragment, the exact size and shape of the piece found in the desert. Suddenly the silent desert speaks. But the breakthrough doesn't end there. When investigators run DNA swabs inside the taillight housing, they find traces of epithelial cells too degraded for full identification, but enough to connect to Emily's missing person file. The probability isn't absolute, but it is enough to spark an arrest warrant. Enough to force the long-shut doors of justice to creak open. And yet, even with the suspect in custody, the most shocking revelation is still waiting in the shadows. Because buried inside that old storage unit behind dusty toolboxes and oil-stained tarps, detectives uncover a map. A hand-drawn diagram of the region surrounding mile marker 47, marked with X's and circles. A map dated 2 months before Emily vanished. A map that suggests surveillance planning and intention. A map that changes everything investigators believed about the case. This wasn't random, this wasn't opportunistic. This wasn't a wrong place, wrong time tragedy. It was deliberate. A plan carved into paper long before the desert swallowed its secret. And as detectives follow the map's markings deeper into the wilderness, they discover something buried beneath loose rock and hardened earth, a piece of jewelry identified by Emily's family. A pendant she wore every day. Hidden, buried, placed carefully, not dropped. A silent message from someone who thought the desert would keep the secret forever. But deserts don't forget. They wait. They hold the truth like a blade in the sand, and when the moment is right, they let it cut through. The cold case is no longer cold. The desert has given something back, and the theory that investigators held for 20 years collapses into dust. Because Emily didn't walk into the darkness, she was taken into it. The truth doesn't rise gently, it erupts. And when detectives stand over the shallow pit where Emily's pendant was found, the night wind cuts through the silence like a warning. The earth feels unsettled beneath their boots, loose in ways the desert rarely allows. Someone disturbed this ground a long time ago, someone who believed no one would ever think to look here. Yet now, under the harsh glare of portable lights and the weight of 2 decades of unanswered questions, the desert lies exposed, stripped of its camouflage. The suspect Raymond Holt denies everything. His arrest sends shockwaves through 2 states, but his voice stays flat, empty, rehearsed. He claims he's never heard of Emily Carter, never seen her, never driven near mile marker 47. He insists the taillight fragment is coincidence. The map, just old work notes. The jewelry, not mine. His denials fall from his mouth like dull stones hitting concrete. No cracks, no panic, no tells. He is either an accomplished liar or a man who has spent his entire life preparing himself to face consequences without flinching. But detectives feel the shift and invisible change in the room whenever his name appears in the case files. Something quietly hostile like static. As if his presence carries the weight of something practiced, something older than the investigation itself. He is calm in a way that unsettles seasoned officers who've interviewed killers, con men, and ghosts from every corridor of the criminal world. Calm in a way that feels intentional. In the interrogation room, Detective Mara Lynn leans forward, her voice slow and sharp, cutting through the stale air. She lays the pendant on the metal table between them. Raymond's eyes don't flicker. She places the torn map beside it. His jaw barely tightens. She adds photographs of the desert pit, the fragment of taillight, the footprint mold preserved from 2001. Finally, his old storage unit inventory. Still nothing. It's only when she mentions the wildfire that scorched the hidden clue into daylight that he shifts slightly, as if annoyed by the irony of fate. A muscle twitches near his eye, small and nearly invisible, but sufficient. Mara notes it instantly. Even small movements are evidence. Outside the room, forensic techs are piecing together timelines, cross-referencing the map's markings with old mining road logs. Most of those dirt paths were abandoned years before Emily vanished, yet some were still passable by truck. Raymond's former employer confirms he worked night shifts in remote areas alone, unmonitored, free to travel independently if he wanted, a perfect cover, a perfect ghost. But one thing refuses to align. In 2001, Raymond filed timesheets placing him far from Route 93, the night Emily disappeared. Hours away. Multiple witnesses had signed off. The paperwork is clean. Too clean. Detectives dig deeper, examining the signatures. Handwriting experts flag two names as suspicious. Same angular slant. Identical pressure patterns, subtle mimicry disguised as routine bureaucracy. Someone forged verification. Someone gave him an alibi. The revelation slices open the case like a hot blade. If Raymond forged timesheets, he wasn't just improvising. He was planning, preparing, shielding himself long before Emily vanished. It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't random. It was mapped, predicted, executed with precision. Detectives realized the chilling possibility Emily may not have been his first target, and maybe not his last. While investigators worked through mountains of paperwork, the desert remained the greatest witness. Fresh crews returned to the site, identified by the map, expanding the search radius under the burned skeletons of old mesquite branches. They find more, another piece of metal. A zipper pull a strip of fabric hardened by years of sun. Items too small to solve the case alone, but together they trace a quiet path of intent. The land tells the truth Raymond refuses to speak. Every hour the scene grows larger, its boundaries stretching out like an unraveling secret. Drones sweep aerial patterns. Canine units sniff the dirt for traces long thought impossible to recover. The night air smells faintly of ash and old smoke, reminders of the wildfire that brought these secrets out of hiding. Investigators mark each new find with neon flags glowing like artificial stars scattered across the desert floor. But the most disturbing discovery comes just before dawn, when a deputy kneels near a shallow cluster of stones and brushes away sand to reveal a melted plastic badge clip. It doesn't belong to Emily. She never worked anywhere requiring ID. But this clip once held a card from a company headquartered hundreds of miles away. It belonged to a woman who went missing in 1999. A case so cold it had fused into a cautionary tale whispered across Nevada truck stops. 2 victims, 2 years apart, both vanishing along desolate roads, both with evidence now pointing to a single man. Raymond Holt isn't just tied to Emily. He may be the stitch connecting multiple missing women threads in a tapestry of quiet disappearances dismissed as runaways, roadside accidents, or tragedies swallowed by the wilderness. Suddenly, detectives aren't investigating a cold case, they're excavating a pattern. Back at the station, Raymond sits unmoving, hands folded, staring at the wall as though he's waiting for something or daring the police to uncover it. Mara Lynn watches him through the two-way mirror and senses an eerie stillness she can't explain. Not fear. Not guilt. Something else. a resignation mixed with contempt, as though he's playing a game he believes he has already won. She enters the room again, this time with photos of the newly uncovered evidence. She places the 1999 badge clip before him. A pause. Then his jaw tightens for just a moment, barely there, but enough for Mara to feel the temperature in the room shift. "We found this where your map led us," she says quietly. He doesn't speak. 2 victims, 2 years, same region, same pattern. She leans in. The desert remembers even if you think no one else does. Raymond turns his head slowly, eyes meeting hers for the first time. And in that moment, an unsettling calm spreads across his face, a calm so cold it seems carved from stone. "You're late," he murmurs. The words slice through Mara's composure. She can't tell if it's a confession, a taunt, or a warning, but it's enough to confirm what she's known all along. He isn't surprised by the investigation's resurgence. He expected it. Maybe even anticipated it. When she asks what he means, he falls silent again, retreating behind the stillness like a stone fortress. Meanwhile, the forensic team uncovers something critical. Soil samples from the pendant's burial site contain synthetic fibers unrelated to Emily's clothing. Traces of polymer common in older tent materials or protective gear used by miners working overnight in remote zones. Raymond owned equipment like that in 2001. His employer confirms it. But he also shared those work zones with a handful of other men. Men now scattered across states, retired, relocated, or buried. Suddenly, the case fractures into a dozen possible paths. Raymond may have acted alone, or he may have been part of something larger. A shadow network of silence and complicity protected by isolation and desert emptiness. But the most haunting piece comes when analysts finally decode faint pencil notations on the map coordinate states and a system of circles that seem to mark movements, patterns, routes. Daily paths of vehicles passing through the region in 2001. Emily's route is circled twice. The 1999 victim's route is circled once. A third circled route belongs to an unidentified travel pattern, an unknown driver who never disappeared. A survivor, someone who may have escaped him. The realization hits investigators like a shockwave. If there was another driver he targeted but failed to catch, they might still be alive. They might remember something. They might have seen something. They might be the missing voice that cracks the case wide open. Detectives race to track down toll receipts, credit card transactions, and outdated DMV archives. After hours of digging, they find her a retired paramedic named Dana Reeves, who drove through the region in 2001 on the exact date marked on the map. She reported seeing a suspicious pickup tailing her late at night, following too closely, speeding up when she changed lanes. She never connected it to Emily's case. No one ever asked her. And she remembers the driver's face. A face she describes as cold, determined, watching the road like a predator. A face she later recognizes on the news after Raymond's arrest. A face she never forgot. The officers realize the truth has shattered the old theory completely. The cold case isn't a mystery built from empty desert silence. It's a trail, hidden but deliberate, woven from rage, power, and calculation. And somewhere in that forgotten wilderness, more secrets wait beneath untouched soil, trapped beneath 20 years of dust and heat. Because when the desert finally speaks, it never whispers just one name. The moment Dana Reeves identifies Raymond Holt's face, the investigation jolts into a new orbit, as if the entire case has been waiting 2 decades just for her memory to surface. Her words fall with the weight of a long-suppressed truth. He watched me like he already knew what would happen if I stopped. That single sentence becomes a crack in the monolith of silence Raymond has built around himself. A crack big enough for detectives to wedge their way into the past. Dana describes the night in unnerving detail, how the pickup followed her for nearly 30 miles, matching her speed, weaving in and out of her blind spot, closing in whenever the highway narrowed. She remembers gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles went white. Remembers the shape of headlights that refused to dim. Remembers feeling hunted on a quiet Nevada road swallowed by darkness. She remembers kicking up dust when she veered into a rest stop, forcing the truck to either overshoot her or reveal itself. It sped past taillights flashing like an angry pulse. She never realized how close she came to becoming another name on a list no one knew existed. Detectives show her the hand-drawn map recovered from Raymond's storage unit. Her finger hovers over the circles, one marking her own route 20 years ago, before she touches it with a trembling certainty. "He planned this," she whispers, and the room goes still. It's no longer speculation. The map isn't scavenged geography. It's an operation, a ritual, a stalking pattern etched onto paper long before the desert buried the clues. As Dana continues speaking, her voice tightens as though pieces of the night she tried to forget are resurfacing with a vengeance. She recalls one more detail so small she considered it meaningless at the time. The pickup had a decal on the rear window, a worn shape she couldn't make out entirely, but she remembers part of it a triangle, with lines crossing through it. Investigators scramble. Mining company logos from the late 90s are pulled from archives, old corporate records, forgotten safety manuals. And there it is, a match. Not for Raymond's employer, but for another company operating in the region at the time. A company with a workforce that included transient contractors, seasonal drillers, and subcontracted laborers who moved freely across canyon roads and mining trails with no oversight. A company where Raymond occasionally picked up extra hours. He wasn't alone out there. The realization sharpens the atmosphere in the command room. If more men shared those remote work zones, isolated, unmonitored, invisible to the outside world, then the map might be more than Raymond's creation. It could belong to a group, a circle, a silent agreement forged under hot desert sun and long night shifts, where no one questioned what the others did once the headlights disappeared beyond the ridge. Detectives start tracing names. 22 workers operated in that specific region during 1999-2001. 5 died in accidents, 2 cannot be located, 14 are scattered across multiple states. Interviews begin quietly, tactically, with investigators watching for any sign of shared knowledge, rehearsed answers, or guarded loyalties. But before the first interview can take place, an unexpected break detonates the investigation. A forensic analyst calls late into the night, voice trembling with excitement and dread. Under high-resolution scanning, the pendant found buried in the rocks reveals microscopic traces embedded in a crack, tiny shards of red glass so faint they went unnoticed in the initial sweep. The same red glass as the taillight fragment discovered in the wildfire zone, meaning the pendant was buried after the vehicle collision, not before. Someone carried it from the crash site and hid it deliberately. Someone trying to erase evidence. Someone trying to delay discovery. Someone who knew exactly what investigators would look for. The timeline shifts. Theories crack. And suddenly the investigation demands a harsher possibility. If Raymond hid the pendant, then he returned to the scene after the disappearance. He didn't just take Emily. He revisited the crime. He lingered. He rearranged the truth. Why? The question unravels like a loose wire sparking in the dark. Detectives push deeper into his past, combing through arrest records, juvenile files, sealed psychiatric evaluations. Most of it reveals nothing unusual until they find one buried footnote, an incident from 1986 in a remote Utah county. A missing girl. A truck matching the older models he later drove. No arrest. No charges. Case dismissed due to lack of evidence. But the pattern screams from the page like a silent confession. The same roads, the same landscapes, the same type of victim. The desert has always been his hunting ground. Meanwhile, the interrogation continues. Raymond remains expressionless as detectives present every new discovery. The pendant, the map, Dana's testimony. He doesn't flinch, doesn't sweat, doesn't break. He only watches Mara Lynn with eyes stripped of warmth, like someone studying a piece of machinery failing to operate correctly. And then, when she slides the photos of the burned taillight across the table, he says a single sentence, so soft she barely hears it. "You think too small." The room seems to shrink. Mara's breath tightens, not because of the words themselves, but the certainty behind them. They aren't taunting, they're factual, delivered with the calm of someone who knows the investigators are looking at an ocean and calling it a puddle. Before she can press him, he closes his eyes as if ending the conversation by sheer will. Outside, a storm forms in the investigative team. They widen the search radius around the map's coordinates. They revisit desert regions scorched unevenly by the wildfire. They probe ravines and dried creek beds where evidence might have been carried by rare flash floods. Every new discovery or lack thereof feeds an unease building like static. The next morning, they find something that pushes the case into a darker realm. In a narrow wash hidden between two ridges, a search team uncovers a buried metal box, its hinges rusted to iron dust. Inside, photographs sealed in plastic. Grainy, faded, time-stained, but unmistakable. Images of isolated roads, abandoned rest stops, women walking alone to their cars, headlights trailing behind them at a distance. Surveillance, patterns, rituals. Some photos taken in daylight, others captured through night vision lenses. And among them, an image of Emily Carter taken the night she disappeared. Not at the gas station, not on the highway, but from the desert's edge minutes before the footprints ended. She was watched long before she vanished. As detectives flip through the photos, a chill grips the room. There are faces they can't identify, women who match missing person reports across 3 states. Some cases are unsolved. Some aren't even on file. Others predate Raymond's employment in Nevada entirely, meaning someone else took those early photos. Meaning the box might not belong to him. Meaning the map, the movements, the routes, they could be older than Raymond's involvement. The case fractures again, splitting into timelines investigators can barely hold together. But the most haunting discovery is the final photograph in the stack. An image of Raymond himself, younger, wearing work gear, standing beside another man whose face is turned away. A man whose silhouette seems familiar. Sharp shoulders, uneven stance, heavy boots. The same boot pattern from the footprint mold cataloged in 2001. The footprint once attributed to an unknown man, a second presence at the scene, a second hunter. If that photograph is real, Raymond wasn't working alone that night. Someone else stood with him on the desert floor. Someone who might still be free. Detectives scramble to identify the second figure. They enhance the shadows, adjust contrast work with reconstructive imaging. The face remains out of frame, but the posture is distinct. A limp, a slight roll of the right shoulder. They trace employment files again. One worker matches. A driller named Thomas Reed, who left the mining company in 2002. No forwarding address, no tax filings, no public record after 2004. As if he vanished into thin air, or into sand. The moment his name surfaces, the investigators' phones light up. Records suddenly connect Maryland, Idaho, New Mexico. 3 missing women whose disappearances cluster around Reed's last known travel routes. The same type of victims. The same remote highways. The same pattern hidden in darkness. Raymond's quiet words echo in Mara's head, "You think too small." He wasn't talking about Emily. He wasn't talking about Dana. He wasn't talking about the map. He was talking about the scale. This isn't one man. This isn't one crime. This isn't one cold case. It's a network of shadows stretching across 20 years and 4 states acting in silence beneath the desert's relentless sun. A network that believed the sand would protect them. A network that never expected the wildfire. A network about to be dragged piece by piece into the brutal light. And somewhere out there, the second man, Thomas Reed, or whatever name he uses now, is watching the investigation unfold. Waiting, listening, deciding. Because predators don't run when their territory is disturbed. They reposition. And when they do, the desert always trembles first. Night falls over Nevada with a heaviness that feels deliberate, as if the desert itself is bracing for what's coming. The investigation has shifted from a simple pursuit of one man into a hunt for a shadow, an absence shaped like a human being. Thomas Reed, a name that barely exists. A ghost stitched into mining records and faded timesheets hovering at the periphery of missing person cases no one ever connected until now. And as detectives pin his photo beside Raymond Holtz on the evidence board, something unsettling settles over the room. The knowledge that Reed has had 23 years to disappear, refine his habits, erase his past, and become whoever he wants. While the team sifts through archives, Mara Lynn studies the grainy photograph pulled from the buried metal box, the one showing Raymond standing beside the other man. Reed's face is turned away, yet his presence radiates from the frame like a stain. One boot angled into sand. One shoulder dropped lower than the other. A posture shaped by years of manual labor. A stance that screams confidence, familiarity with the terrain, and something colder, comfort in isolation, comfort in darkness, comfort in the ritual of hunting. Across the room, analysts piece together travel routes from old mining logs. Reed's schedule is erratic, unpredictable, but a pattern emerges in the negative spaces. The unaccounted days, the blank shifts, the handwritten notes that seem forged or hurried. A map forms the lines between each point, creating a web that stretches across highways, canyons, and forgotten drilling sites. And in the center of that web sits the same region where Emily Carter vanished. It's no coincidence, it never was. As dawn creeps over the desert horizon, a breakthrough surfaces from an unexpected place. A retired mining supervisor, now in his 70s, calls the hotline after seeing the news about Raymond Holt's arrest. His voice cracks with age and regret. He remembers Reed, remembers his temper, remembers him disappearing for hours during overnight shifts without explanation. Remembers finding Reed washing his truck with industrial solvent, the kind strong enough to obliterate biological traces, on a night in late November 2001, the night Emily disappeared. The supervisor claims he never reported it. Figured it wasn't my business, he says, guilt choking his words. Didn't think much of it back then. That desert, it hides everything. Detectives hang on every syllable. And then he mentions one more detail. A thing so small, he almost forgot it. Reed once bragged about knowing a place no one could ever find. A valley between ridges where the ground shifts with the wind and tracks can't survive an hour. A place he called the Hollow. Not an official name, not marked on any map, but a spot Reed claimed belonged only to him. Investigators freeze. The Hollow might be where Emily was taken, where evidence was buried, where others were hidden long before the wildfire uncovered the first clue. Search teams mobilize instantly. Helicopters sweep the region. Off-road vehicles roar across scrub and gravel. The desert responds with hostility. Sandstorms, cracking heat winds that swallow footprints as fast as they appear. But the team pushes deeper into the terrain, following the old supervisor's half-remembered directions, narrowing the coordinates inch by inch. Hours pass before a drone operator spots something strange, a depression in the landscape that looks unnatural, a bowl-shaped indentation hidden between two jagged ridges, not a crater, not a sinkhole, something else, something carved out by human hands or by years of repeated disturbance. The Hollow. Investigators descend with caution boots, sinking into loose soil that shifts like powdered ash. The air feels different here, heavier, older, as if the desert has been guarding this place for decades, as if it knows what lies beneath. Within minutes, they find the first sign, a piece of fabric, sun-bleached brittle, trapped under a thin layer of sand. They bag it, then another, a button, a plastic hair clip, a rusted earring back. Items that might belong to anyone, yet each one feels like a message rising from the grave. Then they find something worse. Bone. Just one fragment at first, then another. Human. Fragile. Heat-warped from years under brutal sun. They call in anthropologists. They widen the search radius. The Hollow becomes a scene of horrific revelation. Pieces of lives lost, scattered through shifting sand, preserved by accident rather than intention. It is no longer a cold case. It is a graveyard. The mood shifts at headquarters. Fear mixes with urgency. If Reed is still alive, he has had 20 years to refine his methods. If he and Raymond once worked together, they may have developed a system division of labor selection of victims' burial sites marked only in memory. But Raymond is in custody. Reed is not. And the question begins to gnaw at investigators. Did Reed abandon the ritual, or has he continued it elsewhere? As they search for clues, a storm gathers overhead, swirling dust devils across the hollow. The wind screams through jagged rock formations, making the air vibrate with a low, mournful sound. Visibility drops. The search team takes shelter behind vehicles as the desert seems to come alive, howling as if resisting the intrusion. It is during this chaos that Detective Mara Lynn receives a call. A woman in Arizona has reported a suspicious pickup, older model, faded paint-cracked windshield tailing her on a remote highway the night before. She caught a glimpse of the driver in her rearview mirror. Limp, broad shoulders, uneven posture. The storm inside Mara explodes. Reed isn't dormant, he's moving, and he's watching. As the storm over the hollow intensifies, the team realizes the implications. Reed may have seen the news about Raymond's arrest. He may know investigators are hunting him, and if he's still following women on highways, he might be preparing to strike again, repeating the pattern he and Raymond perfected decades ago. The chase shifts again, mutating from excavation to pursuit, from digging up bodies to preventing another one. Mara orders roadblocks across Arizona and Nevada. Patrol cars sweep isolated highways. Rest stops are monitored. Gas stations review camera footage. Every report of an older model pickup is investigated within minutes. But Reed has survived by being untraceable, invisible. He knows the roads better than the police. He knows how to disappear behind ridges, how to cut across dirt trails no GPS has ever logged, and if he senses pursuit, he may escalate. Predators cornered don't retreat, they strike. Meanwhile, analysts studying the buried photographs notice something chilling. Several images include faint reflections or shadows cast by a second camera positioned at a different angle. Meaning two men were recording events at once, meaning the ritual was documented meticulously, meaning Raymond and Reed were not collaborators by chance, but by design. They hunted as a pair. Night descends again, and the desert feels different, charged electric, as if anticipating something. Mara can't shake the feeling that Reed is nearby, watching from a distance, tracking the investigation's movements with the same precision he once used on victims. Then comes the call that shatters the fragile calm. A highway patrol officer finds an abandoned rest stop between Kingman and Laughlin. The vending machines are smashed. Dust is disturbed. Tire tracks cut sharply across gravel. On the ground, a single object glinting under the cruiser's headlights. A pendant. Not Emily's, someone else's. Fresh, the chain still warm from skin contact. There is no time to process the horror. Mara orders an immediate sweep of the area. Officers search the surrounding desert with flashlights slicing through darkness. Dogs bark at the edge of a ravine. Air thickens with dread. And then a scream echoes from the far end of the rest stop, short, sharp, terrified. A woman is found hiding behind a toppled trash bin, trembling uncontrollably, breath ragged. She says she stopped to stretch her legs. Says a man approached her. Says he limped. Says he said he could help her fix her taillight, though her taillights were working perfectly. She ran. He followed. Something startled him. He fled into darkness. Moments later, the sound of an engine roaring to life fades into the desert night. They were seconds away from another disappearance. Reed is no longer a ghost. He is here, he is active, and he knows the net is closing. As Mara kneels beside the terrified woman, she feels the truth settle over her like desert dust. Raymond Holt was never the end of the story. He was only the beginning. A door into something deeper, older, more organized than anyone dared imagine. And out there somewhere in the shifting dark, a man with a limp and a map inside his head is preparing his next move. The desert holds its breath. Because predators hunt hardest when the night is darkest. The desert night stretches out like a taut wire, humming with tension as the rest stop becomes a crime scene that almost wasn't. Officers swarm the area lights, cutting through the darkness in frantic searching beams. Dust hangs in the air, kicked up by boots, drifting like ghostly residue left behind by the man they were just seconds too late to catch. The woman rescued sits wrapped in a thermal blanket, shaking her eyes, unfocused, but alive only because something startled him in the moment he moved in. Something investigators haven't yet identified. Something that made Thomas Reed abandon his ritual mid-stride. For Marilyn, that detail becomes a pressure point in her mind. Reed doesn't get startled. He doesn't stop. Not unless forced. Not unless something breaks the pattern. And patterns are the only language men like him truly obey. As she walks, the rest stop's cracked pavement, her flashlight glides across scattered gravel and upturned trash, picking up a trail so faint it's barely visible, a streak in the dust, the faint imprint of a boot dragging behind a hurried step. The limp. Reed's unmistakable signature. But then she sees something else, a second set of footprints overlapping his. Not fresh enough to be the woman's. Too large to be hers. Spaced differently. Angled sharply. A stance bracing for impact. Two men, two sets of prints. For a moment, her breath freezes. Could someone else have been there? Another predator, a copycat or worse. Someone working with Reed even now. As forensic techs kneel beside the prints taking molds, Mara feels a cold certainty settle in her bones. Reed didn't get startled. He got interrupted. By someone who wasn't supposed to be there. Someone he didn't expect. Someone whose presence was enough to break the ritual. The desert offers no clues about who that was. Not yet. But the possibility of another man roaming the highways, another shadow chasing victims in the dark, sends a tremor through the investigation. Meanwhile, dashcam footage from patrol vehicles is reviewed on site. A grainy frame catches something just as officers were rushing in, a shape at the edge of the rest stop too distorted to identify. Not Reed. Too tall. Moving too steadily. Reed limps like the ground hurts him. This figure walks fluidly, confidently, slipping into the darkness with precision. A watcher. An observer. Someone monitoring the encounter from just far enough to avoid detection. Mara stares at the pixelated silhouette, feeling the case stretch into a deeper unknown. Raymond's words echo in her memory, "You think too small." She now understands he wasn't referring to the victims. He wasn't referring to the burial sites. He was referring to the predators, the hunters, the network that might be more than just him and Reed. The implications shake the team. Back at headquarters, investigators map Reed's known movements from the past 20 years. But each time they pin a location, another missing person report surfaces: women who vanished in proximity to those routes, cases dismissed as accidents, desert misadventures, or voluntary disappearances. Every red marker on the board bleeds into another, forming a constellation of tragedy that spans hundreds of miles. The room grows quiet as analysts trace the patterns. Reed didn't drift randomly. He followed corridors of isolation truck stops, long-haul routes, abandoned mining roads, places where surveillance is scarce and screams carry nowhere. And the more they trace, the clearer it becomes that some disappearances occurred on nights when Reed was provably somewhere else entirely. Not nearby, not close enough. Which forces a terrifying conclusion: he wasn't working alone, he never was. There were others. The team digs into mining records again. More names jump out. Men with overlapping schedules, men with similar movements, men who vanished from employment records after 2001, absorbed into the sprawl of blue-collar transients. No crimes tied to them, no warrants, just holes. Men who walked into the desert and dissolved into anonymity. A chilling thought begins forming in the command room. What if the map wasn't Reed's or Raymond's alone? What if it was a shared map? A collective blueprint? Back at the Hollow, anthropologists uncover additional remains, skeletal fragments belonging to at least 3 different individuals. The bones tell silent stories of violence buried beneath decades of shifting sand, a jawbone fractured by blunt force, a femur cracked mid-spiral, a rib cage crushed inward, marks not made by animals or erosion, marks made by human hands. The discovery transforms the Hollow from a burial site into a killing ground. Mara receives a call from the lab late into the night. Soil samples from the Hollow contain not just fibers, but traces of accelerant, ancient, degraded, yet distinct. Someone attempted to burn evidence repeatedly over the years. Someone who returned to the Hollow again and again, tending it like a garden of secrets. Reed. but possibly not Reed alone. The timeline of remains predates some of his known employment years. Some disappearances occurred when he was hospitalized for a mining injury, which means another man continued the pattern during his absence, possibly inspired by him, possibly trained by him, possibly the very man caught on the rest stop's dash cam. The idea of a lineage of predators begins to emerge, a chain of behavior passed like a weapon from hand to hand. The team's breathing grows shallow as the scope widens again. Then comes another shock. An anonymous tip arrives, just 3 whispered words left on a voicemail routed through 2 burner phones. He's not alone. The voice is distorted, genderless, impossible to trace. But fear quivers beneath the words, urgency slicing through digital static. The team scrambles to identify the caller. No luck. The phone burned. The SIM destroyed. But the message hits its mark. Reed isn't the last piece. He's the middle. A link in a chain. A chain investigators haven't yet fully mapped. While the team spreads across counties in pursuit of Reed, Mara returns to Raymond Holt, stepping into the interrogation room with a realization that has hardened into conviction. Raymond isn't just a killer. He's a historian, a chronicler of a legacy, a man who kept mementos, maps, notes not for himself but for someone else, for continuity, for the next man, for Reed, or whoever might come after. She lays photos of the hollow before him, bones, fragments, items burned and buried. His expression remains stone. But when she places the image of the rest stop's rescued woman on the table, something shifts behind his eyes. Not remorse, not surprise, but irritation. As if Reed's failure is a personal flaw, a disruption of order. You knew he'd keep going, Mara says quietly. Raymond says nothing. You groomed him, she adds. You taught him. Still silence. You weren't just partners. His eyes lift slow and deliberate. The silence becomes an answer in itself. Mara steps closer, pushing her voice into a whisper that cuts like a blade. How many others are out there? Raymond's lips curve not into a smile, but into something worse. Something devoid of humanity. A twitch of amusement at the scale of what she doesn't yet understand. You'll run out of daylight before you run out of names, he murmurs. It's the closest thing to a confession she'll ever get. Meanwhile, field teams flood the highways hunting Reed. A bolo alert sweeps across state lines. Officers track every sighting of an older model pickup. Roadblocks tighten. Patrol patterns intensify. Rest stops have uniformed officers circling like vultures, waiting for a movement in the dust. But Reed slips through like smoke and wind, until a long-haul trucker calls dispatch. He saw the pickup, parked beneath an abandoned overpass 30 miles west. No lights, engine cold, a silhouette beside it, not moving. Officers rush to the location. The pickup is there. Reed is not. But on the passenger seat lies a folded piece of paper with coordinates written in cramped handwriting, another location in the desert. And beneath it, a Polaroid, fresh, edges still warm. The photograph shows a woman, bound, terrified, alive. And in the corner of the frame, Reed's shadow. The desert holds its breath again. A countdown has begun. Reed isn't running. He's orchestrating, drawing them in, manipulating the chase like a game he's played for decades. And somewhere beneath the Nevada sky, a new victim waits in the dark, the sand shifting beneath her legs, the wind swallowing her voice. All while Reed watches from the shadows, planning his next move with the precision of a man who knows the landscape better than the law ever will. The coordinates on the folded paper burn into Mara's mind long before she reaches the command center. They mark a location deeper into Nevada's wilderness than any previous search. A place with no roads, no structures, no signal, just a stretch of raw desert carved by wind and time. A place Reed chose deliberately. A stage he prepared long before the police ever caught up. And the fresh Polaroid sitting beside those numbers is a message spelled out with cruel precision: come, find me, if you can. A tactical convoy forms within minutes. SUVs loaded with search gear roar across the cracked highway, scattering sand behind them like a plume of dust rising from pursuit itself. The desert grows darker as they move farther from city lights. Even the stars feel dimmer out here, as if the sky tightens its grip on every secret Reed has buried beneath it. Mara rides in the lead vehicle, staring at the photograph of the bound woman. Her eyes are wide with terror, but more haunting is the background, tiny, indistinct shadows on the horizon ridges forming a jagged silhouette. Terrain that matches no known map. Reed picked the location because he knows the land better than satellites do. Somewhere out there, he's waiting. The convoy stops miles before the coordinates. The terrain becomes too unstable for vehicles. From here, they move on foot, guided only by dim lights and GPS signals that glitch more often than they function. The desert feels alive, crawling, breathing, whispering through the brush. Every flicker of wind sounds like footsteps. Every shadow holds the shape of a man who may or may not be there. They push forward until the land slopes downward unexpectedly, revealing a narrow basin surrounded by ridges so high they block moonlight. The temperature drops sharply. The ground changes texture beneath their boots from hard-packed sand to something soft or disturbed, as if someone prepared this ground recently. They reach the exact coordinates. No one speaks. At the basin's center sits a single object, a lantern flickering weakly placed on a rock, as if marking a trailhead into darkness. Beside it, half buried in the sand, lies a length of rope fresh, tightly coiled, unused. A symbol, a warning, or an invitation. Mara steps closer, scanning the surrounding ridges. The shadows are too thick, the silence too deep. The woman from the Polaroid isn't here, but Reed's presence lingers like the smell of cold metal. Something in Mara's gut twists an instinct screaming that this place isn't the destination, it's the threshold, a decoy meant to draw the team in to distract them, to waste time. She signals for a wider search pattern. Officers fan out, sweeping the edges of the basin. That's when they find the tracks. Boot prints. Deep. Uneven. One dragging slightly. Reed's limp. They lead away from the lantern toward a narrow passage between two canyon walls, sharp, winding, claustrophobic. A place where sound doesn't travel and visibility collapses into black nothingness. Reed chose the terrain for total control. He could be anywhere in those passages, watching, waiting. Mara signals to proceed, adrenaline pounding through her veins like gunfire. The team descends into the canyon flashlight, slicing through the darkness. The air grows cold and still thick, with an oppressive quiet that feels almost deliberate. The canyon walls close in, forming a corridor barely wide enough for two people to walk side by side. Then the smell hits. Metallic, damp, ancient. Not blood, not decay. Something stranger, like old machinery left to rot. The canyon widens, suddenly revealing the remains of an abandoned mining platform half buried in sand. Rusted rails, collapsed supports, empty barrels, tools scattered like relics from a ghost town. A forgotten remnant of the region's industrial past. A place Reed might know intimately. A place where sound dies quickly and bodies disappear even faster. The team sweeps the structure. Dust clouds rise with every step. Old nails crunch under boots. A torn piece of fabric hangs from a rusted hook, modern, synthetic, same pattern as the shirt the Polaroid woman wore. Fresh. Placed within hours. Reed brought her here, but where is she now? Mara hears something faint, barely audible. A muffled thump. A scrape. A breath swallowed by fear. She raises her hand for silence. The team freezes. Another sound closer this time. A soft, trembling whimper echoing from beneath the collapsed platform. Her heart slams against her ribs. They dig with frantic hands, pulling boards aside, shifting debris. Beneath a thick layer of dust, they find a trapdoor hidden under an old metal sheet. Bolts rusted, hinges stiff. They pry it open, revealing a ladder descending into pitch blackness. A woman's sob escapes from the darkness below. Mara goes down first. Her boots touch uneven ground, a small chamber carved into the earth, reinforced with rotting beams. The air is stale and suffocating. On the floor lies the woman from the Polaroid, bound, but alive, eyes wide with disbelief as she sees rescuers descending like shadows of hope from above. But Mara's victory lasts only a heartbeat. The chamber holds something else. A message carved into the wall in jagged strokes. "You're following the wrong man." Her blood runs cold. This isn't Reed's handwriting. It's too neat, too calculated, too deliberate. Reed's style, from every note and map recovered, is sharp, hurried, almost feral. This message is the opposite, manicured, meticulous, as though crafted by someone who wants to be understood, someone precise, someone careful, someone else. The realization slams into Mara like a physical blow. Reed wasn't the one who kidnapped this woman. He was nearby, yes. His shadow appeared in the Polaroid, yes. But he wasn't the one who bound her. He wasn't the one who carved this message. He wasn't the one who brought them here. He was being framed, or used, or manipulated by another predator who understands the investigation's every move. As the woman is lifted through the trap door, Mara climbs up last, adrenaline tangled with dread. She bursts into the canyon air, scanning the ridges. And then she sees him just for a second, a figure standing on the highest ledge silhouetted against the moon. Tall, upright, no limp. The same figure from the rest stop dashcam. The true architect. Before anyone can raise a weapon, he disappears behind the ridge, swallowed by the night like he was born from its shadows. Mara sprints toward the ridge, scrambling up loose rock, cutting her palms, gasping through her mask. She reaches the top flashlight, whipping across the landscape. Nothing. No tracks, no sound. Just endless black desert stretching into infinity. He's gone. The team regroups, carrying the rescued woman to safety, but the discovery of the chamber, the message, the figure changes everything. Reed may still be a predator, but he is no longer the most dangerous man in the desert. Another hunter is out there, one more cunning, more organized, more strategic. Someone who knew the investigation would chase Reed. Someone who anticipated every move. Someone who used Reed's shadow to mask his own. As officers tend to the woman, Mara walks away, staring into the void between ridges. She knows what the message on the wall means. There is another map, another pattern, another predator, another cold case waiting to erupt into the present. Somewhere out there, a man with unwavering steps and a perfectly steady gait watches the searchlight sweep across the sand, planning his next move, smiling at how easily he slid beneath the radar. Reed was never the end game. He was the bait. And the true hunter has just begun to reveal himself. The desert feels different now. It no longer breathes with the slow, ancient rhythm of a land that merely keeps secrets. Tonight, it pulses alive, awake, as if it too has realized that the wrong monster has been chased, cornered, arrested. The real shadow is still out there, walking with deliberate, confident steps on ground that swallows footprints and spits out only silence. Back at the makeshift command post, the rescued woman is wrapped in a blanket and examined by medics. Her voice trembles as she tries to speak, but her memories come out fractured in jagged bursts. Hands she never saw clearly. The scrape of something metallic, the feeling of being watched long before she was taken. She insists the man who grabbed her did not limp. She repeats it again and again, her fear sharpening each word. He walked like he belonged there, like the ground listened to him. Mara hears this and feels the floor tilt beneath her. Reed didn't do this. Reed didn't orchestrate this trap. Reed didn't carve that message into the wall. Someone else staged the kidnapping using Reed's legacy as camouflage. Someone who has been watching the investigation move like pieces on a board. Someone who knew the convoy would follow coordinates written in Reed's handwriting. Someone who predicted every step. The command tent buzzes with voices, officers shouting updates, analysts cross-referencing maps, radios cracking with bursts of static. But beneath the noise, a growing dread hums like an underground current. It whispers one truth they are behind, fatally behind. Every answer they dig up spawns another question, widening the chasm between what they believe and what they actually face. Mara steps away from the chaos, breathing shallowly as she rifles through evidence boards. Her eyes scan photographs, hand-drawn maps, Polaroids, scattered notes. Reed's patterns form one universe, messy, brutal, impulsive. The new predator's pattern is another, precise, orchestrated, architectural. Two signatures, two styles, one desert, one timeline. Two hunters moving through the same darkness. A chilling thought tightens around her throat. What if Reed wasn't the mentor? What if he was the student? What if the real architect was there long before him? As she studies the message carved into the underground chamber, "You're following the wrong man," her mind spirals. It wasn't a taunt. It wasn't a warning. It was a correction. A redirection. Almost helpful in a way that makes her skin crawl. The true predator isn't afraid of being found. He wants to be followed, but on his terms, on his ground, in his shadows. She remembers the figure on the ridge, the silhouette watching them pull the woman from the chamber. He stood tall, steady, controlled. He didn't run in panic. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who already knows the next step. He has a plan. Before she can process it, a tech rushes toward her with a tablet in hand. "Detective Lynn, this just came through." A new message, untraceable, sent to the emergency tip line's encrypted channel. A photograph. Mara's stomach drops. It shows the same basin they just left. Same lantern, same rock, same coils of rope. But this time, the photograph is taken from above from the ridge where the silhouette stood. The angle is perfect, centered, deliberate. In the corner of the frame, illuminated by moonlight, is a single line scratched into a piece of metal. "You look the wrong way." Mara's pulse spikes as she stares at the image. The message wasn't carved earlier, it was carved after they left. He returned to the site within minutes. He approached the same spot where dozens of officers had stood. He moved through the canyon shadows while they were pulling the victim out. He was there, inches from them, watching from vantage points only he knew. He is ghosting them in real time. Outside the tent, the wind picks up, carrying fine grains of dust that pepper the air like static. Somewhere beyond the floodlights, the desert howls a long, low moan that sweeps across the barren expanse. Mara steps out, staring into the darkness. A feeling prickles the back of her neck, a sensation she's only felt once before standing on the edge of a crime scene when the killer is still close enough to hear you breathe. A tech calls out again. "Detective, we identified something in the Polaroid." He enlarges the left corner of the image, the shadow. Not Reed's profile. The shape is wrong, the shoulders too squared, the stance too balanced. And there's a faint shape behind the figure barely visible. A tripod. Someone filmed the kidnapping. Someone filmed the placement of the coordinates. Someone filmed Reed's involvement. Someone filmed everything. This predator doesn't just hunt. He documents, he curates, he archives. He is building something, a record, a timeline, a legacy. Mara feels a wave of nausea. Reed was never the curator. Reed was a tool, a distraction, a decoy, a stepping stone in a ritual crafted by someone infinitely more dangerous. Before she can respond, another call comes in. A patrol officer near Route 163. A civilian reported seeing a figure standing on a cliffside, motionless, staring down at passing vehicles. When the officer arrived, the figure vanished. But he left something behind, wedged into a crack in the rock, a metal tag. Old, weathered, stamped with a serial number tied to mining equipment decommissioned in 1997. Another message, another breadcrumb, another deliberate invitation. The officer reads the carved words aloud over the radio. "The first grave isn't in the hollow." Mara freezes. The hollow wasn't the beginning. It was a midpoint, a continuation. A piece of something bigger. The true killer has been burying victims before Reed ever appeared. The timeline stretches back years, maybe decades. The desert hasn't just swallowed evidence, it has swallowed generations of crimes. Mara orders the team to pull every missing person case from Nevada dating back to 1980. The board fills with faces, names, timelines, last known locations. The sheer volume is suffocating. So many disappearances dismissed as runaway teens. Desert hikers, travelers lost in storms, accidents that never had bodies. Patterns emerge, 3 per decade, spread across different counties, always near mining roads or abandoned infrastructure. Cases too far apart for one man, unless he was in the region for decades, unless he moved with the shifting sands of the mining industry. unless he used the desert's slow erosion to erase his presence. A miner, an engineer, a foreman, a land surveyor, a geologist, anyone with reason to wander the most remote places without suspicion. It could be anyone, but one case stands out. A disappearance in 1989, long before Reed, long before Raymond. A woman named Laura Jensen, last seen near an abandoned silver mine. Her car was found with the keys still in the ignition. Search efforts failed. The case went cold, but one detail was overlooked. The mine was owned by the same parent company that later employed both Reed and Raymond. 3 decades, one company, hundreds of remote sites, unsupervised workers, thousands of unrecorded hours in the desert. This predator didn't stumble into a hunting ground, he built one. As Mara stares at the old records, her blood runs cold. The name of the mine supervisor overseeing the region in 1989 leaps off the page, Harlan Price. She flips through personnel files. His photo shows a tall man, square shoulders, perfect posture. A face expressionless, unremarkable, invisible. The kind of man you forget the moment you turn away. He retired in 2004. No forwarding address, no digital footprint, no family, no trace. A ghost before ghosts were suspected. But his gait, steady, balanced, unwavering matches the silhouette on the ridge. Mara's heart slams in her chest. They haven't been hunting a single killer. They've been hunting the man who trained them, the architect of the hollow, the curator of the photographs, the predator who carved the walls with messages only he finds amusing. Harlan Price, the man who vanished before anyone realized he was the reason people vanished. As officers scramble with this new name, Mara steps outside again, staring at the dark horizon. And there, far beyond the reach of floodlights, she sees a faint glow, a small, isolated light flickering like a lantern in the wind. A signal, a reminder, a challenge. Harlan Price is out there moving in the shadows of the desert he once ruled. And now that he knows the police are closing in, he won't run. He'll prepare, because predators like him don't fear pursuit. They anticipate it. They build around it. They sharpen their teeth on it. And somewhere in the darkness between ridges, he whispers the next move, knowing they can't hear him yet, but soon they will. The glow on the horizon is faint at first, so faint that Mara wonders if exhaustion is tricking her eyes. But the light holds steady, pulsing in slow, deliberate flashes like a heartbeat in the distance. Officers scramble to identify its source, but no satellite imagery, no road database. No mining chart overlay shows anything in that direction. It is nowhere. It is nothing. Which makes it exactly the kind of place Harlan Price would choose. The name still tastes strange, foreign, wrong. Harlan Price, a ghost resurrected from decades-old mining rosters. A man who never appeared in police databases, never appeared in civilian records, never appeared in public. He existed only in the margin signatures on shift logs, blurry ID cards, faded group photos where he stands just out of focus. The perfect architect for a legacy buried under sand. Mara orders a perimeter formed around the direction of the light. Officers fan out, cutting through the desert on foot, following its pulse like trackers moving toward a wounded animal. But the desert shifts under them, wind dragging sand over footprints within seconds, obscuring everything, turning their progress slow and painstaking. Every few minutes, the light dims, fades, then reappears in a slightly different position as though it's being moved or carried. Harlan is leading them somewhere. Not fleeing, not hiding, guiding. The thought crawls under Mara's skin like a chill. This isn't pursuit, it's entrapment. They advance deeper into the wilderness, leaving behind the faint safety of the command post. The air grows colder. The terrain becomes uneven, broken by jagged stones and narrow ravines. The wind funnels between the rocks in eerie low moans that sound too much like voices. Shadows twist with each flicker of the distant light, forming shapes that vanish when the flashlights sweep across them. Hours pass. The light grows brighter, closer, more deliberate. Then the radios crackle, barely audible static, then a faint voice drowned in white noise. A dispatch officer calls out, "We're receiving interference. Unknown frequency." The words stretch, distort, collapse into a piercing screech. Communications cut out completely. The desert has swallowed their signal. They are on their own, The light finally reveals itself at the edge of a cliff, an old mining beacon mounted on a pole, its lens cracked flickering with uneven bursts of electricity. The wiring trails down into the sand, disappearing behind a ridge. This isn't random. This beacon didn't survive decades by accident. Someone repaired it. Someone rewired it. Someone turned it on tonight. And that someone is watching. A rustle echoes above. Flashlights snap upward. High on the ridge stands the silhouette, tall, immovable, carved by moonlight into something almost mythic. The posture is unmistakable. Shoulders square, back straight. No limp. No hesitation. The architect himself, the phantom who has been choreographing every step of the chase. Harlan Price. But before officers can climb, his silhouette turns and disappears behind the ridge with the calm assurance of a man who knows the terrain intimately. The chase explodes instantly, officers scrambling up the steep slope, loose rock sliding under their boots. Mara leads the ascent, heartbeat pounding like a war drum. At the top they find nothing, only deeper darkness stretching into another valley, another maze carved from stone. But something glints in the sand, a metal object half buried. Mara picks it up. An old miner's headlamp. Fresh battery. Still warm to the touch. Attached to the strap is a folded piece of paper. 3 words scrawled in neat handwriting. Keep going down. Every instinct screams to turn back, to call in reinforcements, to stay in open terrain. But the message wasn't meant for caution. It was meant for compulsion. And whether they want to admit it or not, the team is already inside the architecture of Harlan's design. They descend into this valley, deeper, darker, colder. The air thickens as if they're stepping into a place that hasn't felt breath in years. Rocks jut out like broken ribs. The ground dips in unnatural ways, forming pits and ledges shaped by machinery long abandoned. Then they see it, the entrance. An old mine shaft carved into the rock face, its wooden supports still intact but weathered. Rusted metal rails disappear into the black. A collapsed sign lies half buried in the sand. Mara brushes it off. Carmichael Mine No. 3, closed in 1996. 12 workers laid off. 1 fatal accident, unidentified remains never recovered. Harlan supervised this mine. He brought them here deliberately. Mara signals the team to switch to backup lights. They step inside their beams, cutting through dust that hangs like fog. The tunnel walls are scarred with tool marks, ancient and violent. Something drips steadily in the distance water, or something worse, echoing in perfect rhythm. Deeper in the tunnel splits into 2 paths. One is partially collapsed. The other is clean too clean. Footprints in the dust. Recent, dry, not Reed's dragging gait. Harlan's perfect stride. They follow. The air grows colder, the walls narrower, the floor more uneven. The mine curves downward at a harsh angle, forcing some officers to brace themselves against beams that creak under their weight. Every creak sounds like a warning cry. Then they reach another chamber. A small alcove carved intentionally smooth floor, flat walls, an unnatural precision that suggests this was no accident of mining. And at the center lies a wooden crate lid, removed contents displayed like an exhibit. Inside objects from past disappearances. A child's shoe from 1992. A missing hiker's water flask from 1987. A silver necklace matching a case from 1995. A dried flower from a roadside memorial. A torn piece of fabric from Emily Carter's jacket. The chamber isn't a hideout, it's a museum. A twisted archive of everything Harlan has taken. Items that span decades. Items that connect him to every cold case in 3 states. Mara's breath shakes. The team freezes, overwhelmed by the magnitude of truth displayed in this macabre collection. The scale of his violence, the precision of his ritual, the decades of unchecked horror, it all breathes from the crate like the exhalation of a long-buried monster. Then the lights go out. Total darkness. Pitch black. Every flashlight flickers and dies at once. A generator somewhere has been cut. Or hacked. Or manipulated remotely. Mara's ears ring with sudden silence. The team's panicked breaths echo like trapped animals. And then footsteps. Not from the tunnel ahead, from behind. Slow, measured, heavy, confident. Harlan is in the mine with them. Someone's hand scrapes a wall. Someone whispers a curse. A gun is drawn, but no one fires because the darkness binds them in place like invisible chains. A faint metallic click echoes a switch flipping a cord pulled. Then a dim glow appears, lanterns lining the chamber walls igniting one by one in eerie yellow light. They cast long shadows that stretch like limbs distorting the officers' silhouettes. And there he is, standing at the far end of the chamber, Harlan Price, tall, still, eyes calm, expression unreadable. He looks less like a killer than a man who has been expecting company. His hands hang loosely at his sides, but every line of his posture radiates control. This is his kingdom, his terrain, his labyrinth, and they have walked into it willingly. He steps forward one quiet, precise step. No one breathes. His voice breaks the silence low and steady, echoing off stone like an old hymn. You've been chasing the wrong ghosts. Mara raises her weapon, but Harlan doesn't flinch. You think this is about Reed? He asks, eyes drifting over the team. Reed was a child playing in the dark, a shadow made from a larger shadow. He gestures to the crate. My work began long before he drew breath. Mara speaks through the clenched jaw, hands where I can see them. But Harlan only tilts his head slightly, studying her like an object behind glass. You walked into a grave, he murmurs. You don't know how to walk back out. He steps backward into the tunnel behind him, and the lanterns begin to flicker, one by one, going out, plunging the chamber into darkness again. And Harlan Price vanishes into it, swallowed by the mine like a spirit returning to the depths. Darkness collapses over the chamber with the weight of a cave-in, swallowing the flicker of the remaining lanterns until nothing is left but the sound of breathing sharp, frantic, disoriented. The mine becomes a living organism, its tunnels exhaling cold drafts that slither across the officers' necks like fingers tracing a threat. Mara presses her back against the wall, weapon raised, heartbeat trembling inside her chest. She can't see her team. She can barely hear them through the pounding in her ears. And somewhere inside that suffocating void, Harlan Price moves with the composure of a man walking through his own home. Metal shrieks in the distance, rails groaning under shifting weight stones skittering across the floor, the whisper of boots sliding across dust. Not running, not hiding, guiding, always guiding. He wants them to follow. Not because he's careless, but because he's designed the terrain to bend around him like a veil. Flashlights sputter back to life one by one, their weak beams cutting jagged lines through the darkness. The chamber is empty. The crate of relics remains a grotesque time capsule of decades of pain. But the tunnel where Harlan stood moments ago is vacant, its shadows thicker than before, hugging the walls like sentient smoke. Mara steadies her breath and signals silently. The team regroups, shaken but alive, faces pale under the flickering lights. They move into the tunnel, not because it's safe, but because there is no turning back. The mine breathes around them, the silence heavier than the stone overhead. Every footstep sends echoes ricocheting through unseen passages. It becomes impossible to tell where Harlan is left, right ahead behind. Every direction feels like a trap. Then faintly they hear it, a voice. Not a shout, not a scream, a murmur, low, rhythmic, chant-like. The kind of sound a person might make talking to themselves or rehearsing lines carved into memory. The sound drifts through the tunnels like smoke curling between rocks, slipping around corners. It is impossible to pinpoint. Mara raises a fist. The team halts. The voice stops. A dripping sound replaces it. Slow, steady droplets falling from some unseen crack in the ceiling. Their beams sweep across the tunnel until they find what the droplets fall onto. A helmet. A miner's helmet, old, cracked, lying in the center of the path. Fresh liquid drips onto it, forming a small dark pool on the metal surface. Not water. Too thick. Too dark. Too still. A metallic scent hits them sharp and unmistakable. Blood, and it isn't old. Something or someone was here minutes ago. A shout echoes behind him. An officer calls out, panic tightening every syllable. We've got something. Mara whirls back toward the chamber they left. The officer stands at the entrance to a narrow side tunnel, shining his light downward. There, carved deep into the rock, is another line of handwriting, clean, even disturbingly elegant. Turn around and count. Mara freezes. She doesn't count. No one counts. They turn, and the mine floor behind them, empty only moments ago, is now littered with objects. Dozens of them. Small, scattered, glinting under flashlight beams. Roxbone's tools. No, Polaroids. Spread in a perfect semicircle across the ground, each one angled outward like a gallery display. The photographs show scenes investigators know too well, crime scenes, search parties. Empty desert roads where victims were last seen. Each photo taken at night. Each illuminated by a single, unmistakable light source. A lantern. The same lantern now burning in the basin above. The same lantern that led them here. Harlan has been capturing his own history, recording the aftermath of his crimes, photographing investigators searching for victims he buried decades ago. His ritual isn't just murder, it's documentation, observation, control over narrative. Mara kneels scanning the images. The earliest one is dated 1984, the most recent tonight. A Polaroid showing the officers climbing toward the ridge. A Polaroid showing the convoy leaving the command post. A Polaroid capturing Mara herself standing before the hollow. Her breath stops. He wasn't just watching them. He was photographing them, recording them, curating them as part of his legacy. She flips the top Polaroid over. A single symbol is drawn on the back. A circle with a line through it. A mining surveyor's mark. A mark used to indicate the beginning of a tunnel system. A mark that says start here. Mara stands slowly piecing it together. Harlan isn't improvising. He's reenacting something. A route. A ritual. A journey he's walked before. Maybe dozens of times. The mine is his map. The tunnels are his chronology. And they are moving through the chapters of his life exactly as he wants them to. As if to prove it, the mine shifts. A rumble rolls through the walls, deep, seismic, ominous. Dust rains from the ceiling. A wooden beam cracks like a gunshot. Officers stumble as the floor trembles beneath them. Back, someone yells. But the tunnel behind them collapses, first stone and splintered wood crashing down in a deafening avalanche that seals their exit in seconds. A cloud of thick dust fills the passage, choking breaths, blinding vision. Harlan has triggered the collapse. Not to kill them, to force them forward. Mara drags herself upright, coughing through the dust cloud, eyes stinging. There's only one direction left, the deeper tunnel. Farther into the mine, farther into Harlan's architecture. She pushes forward. The tunnel widens into a corridor supported by metal arches, long since rusted, their edges jagged with time. Strange tools hang from the walls, manual drills, hooks, lantern frames. Some modern, some ancient, some covered in rust so thick it looks like dried blood. The deeper they go, the more deliberate everything feels. The air becomes colder, the structure more intact, as if Harlan has been maintaining this section, repairing it, preparing it. Then they reach the next chamber. A circular room carved with impossible precision, the kind of space only an engineer or surveyor could design. The walls are lined with shelves, and on those shelves, more Polaroids, more notes, more relics. But something dominates the room's center. A massive wooden work table, covered in maps. Dozens of maps, hundreds of maps. Hand-drawn survey diagrams, topographic sketches, geological cross-sections, each meticulously detailed, each marking roads, mines, basins, tunnels. One map spans the entire length of the table, a master map of the region. On it, dozens of X's trace a pattern across the desert like constellations. Each X represents a site tied to disappearances. But there is a circle drawn in red. One single circle, not on any previously known site, not tied to any previous case, not part of Reed's patterns, not connected to the hollow. A place untouched, unsearched, unknown. A place Harlan has saved. For last. As Mara leans closer, a shadow moves across the far wall, the faint silhouette of a man stepping into view. Every officer swings their weapons toward the shape, but the shadow slips behind a pillar, disappearing again in total silence. Harlan doesn't attack. He doesn't run. He only watches. He wants them to see the map, to understand the magnitude, to understand his work. The work Reed thought he was inheriting, the work Raymond tried to imitate, the work that began before any of them. Mara grips the edge of the table, her knuckles white. For the first time since the case began, she feels something shift inside her, a crack in her resolve. A tremor of dread deeper than fear. Because Harlan Price isn't just a killer. He's an architect, a historian, a curator, a teacher. And what terrifies her most is not how long he has been doing this. It's how carefully he has preserved it. How he moves through the tunnels like a ghost guarding a museum. How he documents every disappearance with photographs and mementos. How he leaves messages carved into walls and metal plates like footnotes in a story only he understands. How he orchestrates the chase as if writing the next chapter. This isn't a man fleeing justice. This is a man giving a tour, and the officers aren't hunters. They are guests. Then a sound cuts through the chamber, soft rhythmic tapping, metal striking stone. Officers whip their lights toward the far corner. A figure stands there, tall, still, silent. Harlan Price. His eyes catch the flashlight beam glinting with a cold intelligence that feels older than the mine itself. He lifts something slowly, a metal rod tapping against the wall in steady intervals. Signal. A code. A ritual. Then he speaks a voice low enough to force them to lean in. You finally found the beginning. He steps backward into the shadows and disappears down another tunnel, the one marked in red on the master map. The final site. The first site. The origin. The place where everything started. The place he has been saving for them. The tunnel marked in red seems to breathe on its own, exhaling a cold draft that crawls along the stone walls like a living thing. Mara stares into its darkness, feeling a chill coil around her spine, not from the temperature, but from the knowledge that Harlan Price isn't running down that tunnel. He's going home. The final site, the first site, the place where it all began. Officers tighten their grips on their weapons. No one speaks. Words feel sacrilegious here, out of place inside a tomb carved by a man who has spent decades shaping the desert into a monument of his own cruelty. Every instinct screams to wait for backup, for air support, for seismic scanners, but the collapse behind them makes retreat impossible. And the map sprawling across the wooden table like a blueprint of madness makes waiting a death sentence. Harlan wants them to follow him now. If they hesitate, he will disappear again. He always does. Mara steps into the red-marked tunnel first. The others follow. The air grows heavier with each step. Dust swirls around their ankles like fog rolling across a morgue floor. The tunnel narrows, forcing their shoulders to brush rough stone that scrapes fabric and skin. The sound of their own breathing amplifies in the tight space, echoing back in distorted harmonics. Footsteps crunch on gravel, each sound sharp and uncomfortably loud. Somewhere ahead, water drips steadily, a rhythmic pulse that grows louder as they descend deeper into this subterranean maze. Then the markings appear, carved into the walls at shoulder height, symbols, lines, grids, dates, initials. Not graffiti, not vandalism. These are surveyor's notations, precise and organized. The kind of marks left during initial excavation of a mine shaft. But some are newer, etched with a deliberate hand long after the mine closed. Fresh grooves cut into old rock. In Harlan's handwriting. He has been mapping this tunnel for decades, and modifying it. The thought hits Mara like a blow. This isn't an abandoned tunnel, it's a workshop, a construction site, a sanctuary crafted by a man with the patience and precision of a master architect. Every turn, every support beam, every carved symbol, it all belongs to him. A faint light glimmers ahead, not flashlight reflection, not lantern flicker. Something warmer, more intentional. The tunnel opens suddenly, spilling them into a vast chamber. And for a moment no one breathes. The room is enormous, carved far beyond standard excavation limits. Too wide, too tall, supported by pillars reinforced with beams scavenged from other parts of the mine. The ceiling rises into a dome shape that seems impossible to achieve with the primitive tools listed in old mining records. But Harlan wasn't working with primitive tools. He had decades, solitude, freedom, obsession. And he shaped this place into something monumental, Lanterns hang from metal hooks in a perfect circle around the chamber, casting a golden glow that makes the air shimmer. In the center stands a raised stone platform polished smooth through years of contact. On it rests a battered metal box, newer than the relics in the previous room, a container meant to hold something precious. But the walls, those are the most horrifying. They are covered in Polaroids, hundreds of them. Rows and rows of captured faces, landscapes, crime scenes, victims, investigators, vehicles, search parties, desert horizons, a timeline of death and disappearance, an evolving collection spanning 3 decades. Every photograph is positioned with meticulous care, forming concentric rings that ripple outward like the growth lines of an ancient tree. This chamber isn't a room. It's a museum. The legacy Harlan never allowed time to bury. And at the far end, near the highest ring of photographs, a silhouette waits. Tall, perfect posture, hands behind his back, watching as though admiring his own creation. Harlan Price steps into the lantern light, his expression calm, almost paternal. "Welcome," he says, quietly, voice echoing through the chamber like a sermon. Weapons raise instantly. Harlan doesn't move. Mara's pulse pounds. She keeps her gun trained on him, but it feels symbolic, like pointing a needle at a ghost. "Hands where we can see them," she orders, voice sharp, wavering only in the deepest part of her throat. Harlan tilts his head slightly. "You don't understand where you are." His gaze drifts across the chamber walls. "This is history, my history, their history." He gestures to the Polaroids with a soft sweep of his hand. "Reed thought he was continuing it," he adds. "Holt tried to imitate it, but they never understood the foundation." Mara fires back, "This foundation ends tonight." But Harlan smiles, a small, chilling smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "I started this long before your agency existed," he says. "Long before Reed was born. Long before any of you were trained to think you can solve the desert." The team slowly spreads out, forming a semicircle. Harlan steps backward, not in fear, but in invitation, guiding them toward the center platform, as though conducting a tour. He taps the metal box with a knuckle. "This," he says softly, "is where you'll find what you're truly looking for." No one moves. He continues. "You think I ran from you. You think I hid. But I've been waiting. For you, Detective Lynn." He looks directly at Mara. "From the moment you reopened Emily Carter's case, I've been preparing this chapter." Mara's blood turns to ice. He knows her. He's been watching her, documenting her. She steps forward, gun steady, voice grounded in rage. "You're done talking." Harlan's eyes glint with amusement. "Then let the evidence speak." He presses the side of the metal box. It clicks open. Inside lies a stack of notebooks, weathered, filled to the brim with Harlan's controlled handwriting. Decades of records, dates, locations, victim descriptions, observations, plans, names stretching back into the 1980s. This is it, the entire truth. The confession articulated in ink. But there's something else in the box. A Polaroid, recent, perfectly exposed, edges still crisp. Mara lifts it with trembling fingers. The photograph shows her team in the collapsed tunnel, above dust, still rising, lights flickering. Taken from behind them. Taken minutes ago. That means Harlan wasn't alone. Someone else took this. Someone very close. Mara's skin crawls. She looks up sharply. "Harlan," she demands, "who's with you?" He smiles, stepping sideways into the shadows. "You've met him before." Her breath catches. The ridge. The rest stop. The canyon ledge. The figure who moved without a limp. The camera. The watcher. The apprentice not yet caught. The successor. The true heir. Harlan's voice echoes from somewhere deeper in the tunnel. "You've been following the first chapter, Detective." Lanterns flicker violently, and the next one is already being written. A distant rumble vibrates through the chamber. A timer, a trigger, a collapse. Mara reacts instantly. "Move!" The chamber shakes violently as ceiling dust bursts downward, filling the air like smoke. Lantern hooks snap. Metal groans. Officers grab the notebooks and bolt toward the tunnel entrance, stones raining down behind them. The walls fracture like a spine breaking apart. As Mara sprints, she hears Harlan's voice one final time, soft, almost tender. "You're too late to stop him." The chamber collapses. A thunder of rock. A storm of dust. A tomb sealing itself forever. Whether Harlan Price is crushed beneath it or vanishes into deeper tunnels, no one can tell. Mara and her team burst into the upper shafts, gasping for air, coated in dust, clutching the notebooks that hold decades of horror. But her mind isn't on the collapse. It isn't on Harlan. It's on the Polaroid, the one taken moments earlier. The one that could only have been taken by a man already free, already outside, already writing his own chapter. The Ridge Watcher, the successor, the second architect. The one who learned everything Harlan ever taught. And somewhere above ground, under the open desert sky, he is moving now, quiet, steady, ready. The final predator has just entered the night.